Hi, first of all, I am an amateur at best, but since I already paid enough money for the battery itself, I figured maybe I can avoid spending even more by changing the battery myself. This exact card is a Ford S-Max 2014. From what I've seen, the layout of the engine compartment is roughly the same for any year, model and type of engine. However, the air intake covering up the battery is a little different depending on year and model. Since I like to keep things authentic here, the engine compartment has of course not been cleaned in, let's just say, a long time. So, alright, this battery is completely dead. The car won't start without an additional car connected to it via jumper cables, so the battery needs to go. To get a hold of the correct battery for your specific car, I recommend using one of those nifty online tools where you can just input your license plate number and it'll spit out the correct alternative. At least that's what I've used here. I also want to again stress the fact that I am an amateur here, so regarding safety, etc., I take no responsibility for anything, but I figured as a reference video for anyone wanting to try this themselves, it might be a good thing to have. However, if you are unsure about positives and negatives and batteries in general, please do not follow along with this video. Alright, for you other people, let's go. Also worth noting before we start, when you remove the battery, you will need to input your security code for the car's stereo system again after the new battery is fitted. This code should be sitting somewhere in your car's instruction manual, usually on a loose piece of paper in the front, so make sure you have it before starting. You can also connect a battery pack to the positive and negative leads of the car to maintain a current to the car during the switch to prevent this from happening, but that is not something I'm going to do here. Alright, let's go! Hood open and the car has been off for a good hour. Not sure if that's needed, but that's what we're working with here. Firstly, to even get access to the battery at all, we need to remove this whole black air filter thingy covering the front of it. This turned out to be both easier and more difficult than I thought. The first thing to do is to loosen this little black and red plug like so. The wire is then clipped on the back of the big air pipe as well as down on the side of it. This clip, at least for me, was mad terrible and I basically broke it pulling it out. I even gave up with it for a little while. But with some prying, it does come out after a while. You can of course also just cut the cable tie and then put a new one back when you're reassembling the whole thing. Next, we need to loosen the clip holding the big pipe in place enough to just pull it out and release the air filter compartment. This was probably the easiest part of the whole thing. Next, we need to pull the whole air filter compartment straight out of the car. This is now only held in place with a clip on the side of the bottom part. After a bit of tinkering, this could actually just be pushed in with a finger and then the whole thing lifted out. This was actually a bit fidgy though, but again, apart from the clip down the bottom, nothing actually holds it down other than a pretty snug fit with all the cables and gizmos around it. Alright, next, the battery protective cover basically just snaps out. There's two clips on each side that needs to be pried out to the respective sides for it to let go. Okay, now for the actual battery. On the right side of the battery is a battery disconnection point for the negative lead. You should always start with the negative lead when disconnecting a car battery to avoid any fires. With my limited arsenal of tools though, I was not able to get this battery connection point undone. If you are though able to get it loose, it will probably greatly improve the ease of the following process. However, if you don't, it is fine as well, at least it was for me. Next, I figured it was time to remove the clip holding the battery in place, something that was fairly easy to do. After that, to be able to pull the battery out enough to get access to the negative point on the battery, the red cable coming from the positive terminal needed to be unclipped from the engine block. Just as with the other clips, this was too a little fidgy, but it did came loose after a few tries. Then I was able to get the battery out enough to be able to loosen the nut holding the clamp of the negative terminal on the battery, and then I just lifted it out of the way, making sure it was no longer touching or falling down on the negative terminal of the battery. It was then time to unscrew the positive lead and then lift it up from the battery. Here I also realized that the right connector needed to be unscrewed from the connection point to not be in the way when lifting the battery out of the car. After that, the battery could then be lifted out of the car. Make sure here that the negative lead is still not touching the battery and the positive lead is not touching anything. From here, it is then just basically a reversal process that was much easier than the disassembly one. After a little cleaning, I put the new battery in place and then reconnected the positive lead first, so again repeating the process backwards. Then I did the same with the negative lead to the minus terminal and screwed it in place. Here the car came slightly alive again and made some beeping noises of gratitude. I then pushed the battery back in place and refitted the little thing holding it in place. Then the battery cover went back on, snapping into place. Then it was time for the stupid air duct filter thing to go back. However, putting it back was much easier than it was removing it. Just make sure it clips into the tube pipe coming from the front of the car and then push it down to see that it's resting on its little rubber feet connection points, followed by inserting the top tube back in and then fastening it again using a normal screwdriver. And as the last step, we just plug the cable back into the air measuring box and then we are good to go. Surprisingly, the car started perfectly fine after this. I hope it does so for you as well. Also, please share any thoughts or questions in the comments below and I'll do my best to help with what I can. Thank you for watching. Bye!